I have 10 o'clock, so we can get started. Today is August 21st, 2025. It is 10 a.m. We are in the fourth floor boardroom of the Central High School building in Jackson, Mississippi. If everyone would please silence their cell phones. We have a couple members who are participating via live stream. I note Mr. East in his first meeting that he is not the chair, decided to stay home. I want that noted for the record. So with that, if each of you would announce where you are.
Michael Mary.
East, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think we can read her lyrics. Yeah, she's in South Tilla. Okay, so we will call our meeting to order. If everybody would please stand, I've asked Mr. Pruitt to lead us in the pledge and Mr. Jacobs to lead us in the invocation.
Please stand and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Holy Father, we thank you for this day and our many, many blessings. We thank you for the very dedicated individuals in this building, as well as the teachers, educators across the state who directly teach and lead our children in Mississippi. As this board does its work today, please give us guidance and decisions we make. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Our first item is to approve the minutes of our July 17, 2025 regular meeting and the August 4th, 2025 special call meeting. Do I have a motion to approve both minutes?
Motion.
I need a change in the minutes last, as I voted against the executive session. Doesn't reflect that here.
Okay, that was in the July meeting, right? Okay. Okay. So noted, I think, okay. With that amendment to the minutes, do I have a motion to approve the amended minutes for the July 17, 2025 meeting and then the August 4th, 2025 special call meeting?
Just for clarification, it was one of the justifications. There were three justifications, I believe, for the minutes. It was
The
you
one
were
about
negative
discussion of
personnel.
the personnel
Personnel.
issue.
That was what you voted, that
Yeah.
particular item only, okay.
Okay. With that amendment, do I have a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion.
McGee first, Ms. Stroud second. Any other discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with our agenda, does anybody have any additions or deletions to the agenda? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Mayo, Mr. East, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to move to the regular agenda? Move to approve the agenda. Is there a second to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Jacobs, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we will turn to our recognition ceremony for this month. Ms. Cook, please.
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Miller, Dr. Evans, and State Board members. Today we are recognizing East Central Upper Elementary School in the Jackson County School District for earning the 24-25 American School Counselor Association RAMP designation. I would like to invite Principal Donna Knight, Superintendent David Baggett, and Dr. Kimberly Williams, Jackson County's Director of Student Services and Federal Programs, to join Mr. Miller and Dr. Evans at the front of the boardroom. Recognized ASCA model program known as RAMP recognizes schools committed to delivering school counseling programs aligned with the ASCA National Model Framework. The RAMP designation demonstrates to administrators, school boards, families, and community that schools are committed to supporting the mission of the school and district. In 24-25, 190 schools in 29 states received the RAMP designation. According to the American School Counselor Association, East Central Upper Elementary School is the only Mississippi school that currently holds the RAMP designation. The RAMP application process requires successfully implementing the ASCA National Model Framework to show evidence of direct and indirect services to students, program planning, improve student outcomes as a result of the school counseling program. East Central Upper Elementary School achieved the ASCA RAMP designation after 2 years of dedicated effort that included all school counselors were trained in the ASCA model for school counselors, which closely aligns with the MDE growth rubric for counselors. The alignment is vital for making data-informed decisions for students. East Central Upper Elementary is committed to addressing students' needs across academic, emotional, social, and behavioral domains. Pursuing the ASC RAMP distinction represents the school's commitment to this mission. Mr. Baggett, Ms. Knight, and Dr. Williams, you are welcome to make remarks at this time.
Thank you. First, Ms. Miller, Dr. Evans, thank y'all for having us here. And I do want to take a minute. I know you have a lot to do today, but I would like for those that are watching this, especially administrators and for school board members, to understand our journey. So 2 years ago, I came on board as a new superintendent, just trying to figure things out. You know, I had a lot going on. But the one thing I knew is I had great leadership in the district, and I always listened to them. Within a couple of weeks, Dr. Williams came to me with a proposal and said, Mr. Baggett, I'd like something I'd like to implement and do district-wide. Tell me about it. So once she explained to me what it was and how it would impact our kids, it was a no-brainer. I was on board. And I asked, what do you need me to do? She said, I need you to be the muscle behind me and make sure that the principals and the school staff understand the importance of this. And with that being said, Kim went to work and started doing what she had to do. And once our people started seeing and understand not only socially and emotionally how it impacted our kids, but also academically the outcomes that we were getting, because it's about looking at the data and making sure you're getting the resources where you need them. So I would implore any district throughout the state, if you haven't already, you need to really look at becoming RAMP certified. It's my goal and expectation within the next 2 to 3 years, we will have all 13 schools in Jackson County School District RAMP certified, because we've seen the results firsthand of how it benefits our kids. So I'm not going to take up any more time. I'd like for you to hear from the real people behind it, and that's Dr. Williams and Ms. Knight, who made things happen, so you can hear their perspective. But from a superintendent perspective, if you haven't looked into this, you really need to, because this is good for kids, both socially, emotionally, but also academically. They all align. Dr. Williams?
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And he is definitely right. I did implore him to be the muscle, because with any change that you're going to implement, you're going to have resistance. And until people realize and understand that our goal is to ultimately to support every child's need as school counselors, it is not necessarily one of those areas where people are really aware of what does a school counselor do, and how can they actually impact the overall growth of our school district. And so once we started to bring in our ASCA coaches and really dig deep, I mean deep into the standards, and making sure that we were not only speaking the standards, but we were actually implementing the standards, that was the game changer. Again, our goal was to make effective and impactful change using the data that we needed to support the overall change.
And once again, thank you guys for having us. It was a 2-year process. It was a lot of work. It was Dr. Williams' vision. It was Mr. Baggett's leadership that got us here. But it was the final piece that put everything together for us as far as being a data-driven school, data-driven instruction. And so that counselor piece just added on that, and with our state accountability scores this year, it made a huge impact on that. And it's more about being proactive with our children instead of being reactive. So to have all those pieces and have that counselor data piece add to our leadership team at our school site is just phenomenal. So I do appreciate Dr. Williams' vision and Mr. Baggett's leadership that got us here. It was a lot of work, and I do appreciate you guys recognizing us for that as well.
Thank you.
Oh, my bad. He doesn't need a chair.
I probably need to stand anyway. We're off to a great start this morning.
These new chairs, they got me all shook up.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is our report from Superintendent, Dr. Evans.
Can't get your chair back.
If I need to stand, I can.
I'm scared of this. All right, here we go. All right, thank y'all so much. Again, that is a big accomplishment, Jackson County. We're very proud and appreciate them being here and the work they're doing for our students in Mississippi. So it's been a busy, very busy month. Just to give you a brief rundown, like we do every board meeting. All right, first, I had, for yesterday, went to Oxford School District. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon paid a visit there as part of her 50-state tour. I believe the title is Bringing Education Back to the States. During that time, we visited Oxford Early Learning Childhood Center. I participated on the front end, bringing some remarks, and then there was a tour, and we participated in a roundtable discussion at the end of that. They did an outstanding job. Bradley Robertson is the superintendent there. He's got great people that he works with. Actually, I thought it was kind of funny. My first job was in Oxford School District. I worked there in 2000. John Jordan was the superintendent. So it was a great experience. So, and Britt Dickens was my principal. So I told that, and I've known Bradley for 26 years now. So I made sure and said some positive things about Bradley yesterday when our secretary was there. So she also visited Ole Miss that afternoon. All right, so had an MSMS visit last week. Ms. Warner, Ms. Stroud, Mr. Pruitt, Mr. Mayo, Dr. McGehee were all in attendance. It was an outstanding meeting. I appreciate them so much. They're actually going to do a presentation here just in a little while. We toured the residence halls and academic buildings, heard presentations from the staff, as well as had conversations with the students. They're always impressive. I really enjoyed listening to them and asking the questions and the Q&A, the whole Q&A session. I just want to thank for all the board members for taking time to attend that, because I know that was, depending on where you are in the state, that was a long drive. So I really appreciate you taking time to be there and do that. So as far as legislative meetings, Wendy Clemens, Dr. Michelle Nowell, Holly Spivey, and I met with House Speaker Jason White to brief him on MDE's mathematics initiative, as well as the literacy initiative. We'll be seeking funds for both of those in the upcoming legislative session to expand this programming across the state. We've gotten very positive. We started dipping our toe in the water, I guess, if you will, last session, and had a very positive response. So I feel as though we'll have great support there. We don't want to count the chickens before the eggs hatch, right? But we do feel as though that's the next step for our state, and we're excited about that. Also met with Agricultural Commissioner Andy Gibson. Ms. Spivey and I did. We talked about several projects that the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce has going on. One of the main projects that we talked about was the Great American Fair 250, is they're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the fair, and they're doing a big thing on the National Mall, and the conversation around that was looking at the Mississippi State Fair, bringing in some bands and having some competitions there. It's a great opportunity that we're actually going to get the information out to districts soon if we haven't already. Also discussed expanding the FFA, the Future Farmers of America programming across the state. I'll tell you on a personal note, where I grew up in Manatee, it was a huge part of my growing up. Joe Rogers is one of the teachers there. I graduated with him. He does an outstanding job. It's always good to give people a shout out that do a wonderful job, isn't it? So also attended the Mississippi Early Learning Alliance event. Miss Spivey and I did. It was their inaugural luncheon. Featured Morgan Freeman, who is, I knew he was a strong supporter of early childhood, but he was a very strong supporter. Not just with his words, but his financial contributions as well. So he's a very strong supporter. And then, really appreciated that time. Of course, they focus on children from birth to 5 years of age. Is that organization what their focus is. Also had a meeting with the Mississippi Department of Health. It was a childhood health roundtable. A lot of great discussions. One of the things that I've tried to do coming in was develop partnerships among state agencies. That was something I saw across the entire state that really needed to be utilized. The power of each of the agencies and how we can benefit them and they can benefit us. You know, one early example of that is a synchronous learning project that we've got with MPB now. It was a little over a $2 million appropriation. I would say we were pretty successful in forming that partnership. So, and it actually started today. And I will tell you, it starting today was a lift because it wasn't until the second part of the session that we received the funding, and woo, that was a race. But we have got it up and running. That is for sure, and it will continue to grow. And it is a testament to the hard work of the people at MDE to pull that off. But there's a lot here, so I'm trying to go fast, so I apologize. Ms. Spivey represented MDE as well at the governor's office for a press conference for the Canopy Anywhere partnership, in which MDE is in a partnership with Canopy Children's Solutions for the launch of the Canopy Anywhere platform, which will give middle school and high school students across the state the opportunity to have digital screenings and as well as a wellness curriculum, in-school therapist, and family support services. MDE is partnering with Canopy to implement the Canopy Anywhere program in 29 of our districts. So there was a criteria that we didn't necessarily establish, but there is 29 districts. So I think that's going to be a really good initiative that probably you'll see expanded in the future. So federal funding, we all know that has been quite the troubling point over the last couple of months. We were very relieved to find out in late July that we were going to be awarded all of the state's federal funding for fiscal year 2025 under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which we affectionately call ESSA. So this funding was being, I believe the word they used was impounded for review, and we did receive all of that. So if you remember, that was holding up about $68 million of our school district's dollars. So we did get those out. So just a quick update on the strategic planning process. We have at this point issued invitations to around 100 educational stakeholders to participate in role-like focus discussions. The ELT will be leading those focus groups. Members of the ELT they were some volunteered. We kind of tried to align it to what their program offices, what their focus areas were, so that they would lead these focus groups. We may need support groups sometimes, but in this is to start getting the perspective of all of the stakeholders. In the beginning, that strategic planning process remember, it is the state's strategic plan. And it was our goal to get a very wide representation of what Mississippi needs moving forward. So we're excited to be to that point. The focus group meetings will be held in late September and early October. And like I said earlier, ELT members are co-facilitating with the groups. And of course, they're made up of students, teachers, principals, superintendents, lawmakers, business leaders, and other educational stakeholders. And so national meetings, I told you it's been a busy month. National meetings, we participated in Excel and Ed. I had a meeting. It was basically a one-day meeting that Kim Wiggins and Dr. Judy Nelson and I attended to look at flexibility and ESSA funding. I think it was a very beneficial meeting. Came back with a lot of really good ideas, and we're building on it and having, I believe, yesterday. I think there was a follow-up meeting, and I believe we have another one next week. So I think that was time well spent. You've seen where the current administration has discussed the additional flexibility and how we can do that with federal dollars. So we're exploring that to see how that can best serve our students and our teachers and administrators in Mississippi. Attended the CCSSO leadership convening with Dr. Vanderford. In that, basically focused on, it was a focus on the roles of state chiefs and deputies, leadership tactics, staying focused on many different areas, and that was a really good meeting as well. So met with the NAEP ambassador. We had our yearly meeting there. Several of the members of the MDE team met with our NAEP ambassador, Dr. Mike Ward. He actually is a former state superintendent of education in North Carolina. And we just basically had our follow-up, if you will, on NAEP results. And there's no new changes there or anything like that. So media interviews, had a interview with MPB Radio. Basically, it was back-to-school topics, and those included reducing chronic absenteeism, federal funding, the disruptions there, Mississippi Student Advisory Council, and as well as any of the new programs going into the 2025-2026 school year. We also focused on the Bridge to Careers course for some of our seniors that need that moving forward to meet a requirement for graduation. So that course has been received very well. And MDE did, we have created that curriculum, and that training for that course is coming very soon for our school districts. Met with Arizona's ABC 15. It was a television station out of Phoenix, Arizona, about the Mississippi Kids Count ranking, of course, our 16th in the nation ranking. Just talk through policies and strategies that Mississippi's implemented over the years. And also met with the national news show is called The Hill Sunday, and talked about they want to refer to it as the Mississippi Miracle, and I tell them every time it offends us, it's actually the Mississippi Marathon. So I have to correct everybody. There was nothing miracle. Yeah, that happened by design in Mississippi. So we also, last thing, we did have an employee staff meeting to introduce new staff and provide updates about legislation, policy, and initiatives that are being implemented. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Dr. Evans about his report? My report, I've worked on our subcommittees. I think I've got it. I've sent it out to everybody. Not asking to approve it today. Y'all would get back with me by next week if you have any changes or suggestions with that. Additionally, one thing that we've started talking, Dr. Evans, I have started talking about is one of the things that we as a board are in control of is we have two sets of schools that we serve as their board. One is the what I call the state schools, which are math and science, deaf and blind, and School for the Arts. And the second group are the schools that we have, I'm going to say this inartfully, taken over. We serve as their board. So to come up with some plans for review, oversight with that, there may even be another subcommittee among the board that comes out of that, but that's something that's in the planning process. I know Dr. Evans has been working on it. I know Mr. Farrell's been working on an evaluation piece with that, but that's something that hopefully in the next 30 days we'll have a little bit something more formal to get all that in line to where we're doing what we're supposed to as a board on that oversight piece. So now we get to hear from two of the smartest people in the room. First, we're going to hear from our senior representative, Crosby Parker.
Morning. So since I was last here, school has officially begun. I have now come into that senior season of college applications, school events, sports teams, and clubs. It's been really, really busy, but it's been really rewarding. I'm very excited for this new year. I'm ready to finish strong, and I just owe so much to my school and community, so that's going to be my focus, that and all these college applications. Last year, we were kind of, around this time, we were all beat over the head about cell phone policy, and especially when those bills were going through the House and Senate. And I spoke here and gave a statement to a reporter on my take, which was that it's important to strike a balance between restrictions and freedoms when it comes to the school dynamic. So I was of the opinion that students should have their cell phones out of reach during classroom time, but outside they should be allowed to use it however they need to, in between classes and lunch, when it doesn't interfere or distract. But I was on the fence about how I felt because I had never actually seen it in action. But this year, my school district has actually implemented this policy, and this is our first year. And I've gotten to really see the results, and they're very positive. I think that this kind of balance can really help certain students. For me, there's not as much of a difference because I still get to use my cell phone. Just now, whenever I'm in class, there's no longer that student who likes to hide it behind their lunchbox or underneath their desk. They're engaged and participating. And I've talked to teachers, I've talked to administrators, I've talked to students. There's been really good collaboration because it doesn't feel like a huge change. It's just taking it out of the equation in the classroom. I believe that this system strikes the right balance between restrictions and autonomy, because without that, it becomes really hostile. I've seen students who would rather get OSS than have their phone taken. And so situations like that are why maybe a really restrictive policy wouldn't be as effective in certain classrooms or in certain situations. But the phones are super distracting and something has to be done. And to leave you with some stats, because we all know that it's a huge distraction, it's an issue, but it's good to know, to put a value to our actual losses. The University of Rutgers did a study on classrooms that have open cell phone policy versus classrooms that have a more restrictive policy. And the open classrooms actually had a 5% reduction in their performances, so about half a letter grade for every student. And this really adds up, especially when these issues are most prevalent among students who are already struggling and already struggle with maybe a cell phone addiction or just poor attention spans. And so striking these balances in our public schools are really important so that we can bring those students into the conversation and engage them in classrooms. Thank you all.
One question you mentioned about your teachers. What has the students' reaction have been based on just your observations?
That's why I think this is a solution that's kind of moderated like this is so acceptable to students, because like I just walk into class, put my phone in the pocket, and I don't think about it for the rest of class because I don't have it on me. And it's not a huge change because if I need it, then I just wait 30 minutes and then use it on the way to the next class. So it's really, that's why we haven't run into any real issues, because it's kind of taken the problem and moved it elsewhere. And I think that's important.
You had a question for Crosby. How are you doing that? When class starts, what happens, and when the bell rings, then what happens? Does it not create a big backlog, people trying to find their phone before they can get to the...
So the way our policy's been implemented is that 2 minutes before the bell rings, you're allowed to go grab your phone. And that's usually when students are kind of packing up and kind of lining up next to the door anyway. So it hasn't really created a backlog, because just teachers sometimes, whenever work's over, they can be, okay, now you can go get your phone. But it's just made it to where, and some teachers have used it to take attendance. Some people have used the pouches on the wall or just little slots in a little box with student's name on it. So it can be used in a lot of different ways. But the main thing that all classrooms have in common is that it's just out of reach from the students, and that the teachers are able to see it and keep track of it.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Crosby? Thank you. All right, now for her debut, and Michelle, I'm going to try to say your last name. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Shia? Very good, Michelle, go ahead.
Good morning. Before I started, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I'm truly honored to be here today. Unfortunately, I had to miss out on the July meeting because I was traveling, but I'm excited to be here today, and I look forward to many of the discussions that we'll have in the future. With school starting recently, I wanted my first report to be on AP classes. So over the past few weeks, I've had conversations with students at my school, and one concern that continues to come up is the limited number of AP courses offered. So we do have some of the core AP classes like AP US History, AP Calculus, but then a lot of the other subjects like AP Computer Science and AP Psychology are not available to us, but I've noticed that the interest is still there because a lot of the students still want to challenge themselves and boost their career readiness. But they often feel stuck because these courses just don't exist in our catalog. So one option is for students to prepare on their own, and then they can sign up to take the exam by themselves even if their school doesn't offer the course. But in reality, very few students actually go through this process, not because they're not capable, but because the idea of teaching yourself an entire AP course can be overwhelming. So for example, last year, one of my friends was super excited because he told me that he was going to self-study AP World History. He was honestly kind of like bragging to me about it. And then so he was like going on Khan Academy and then like YouTube looking for resources. He did like persist for a couple of months, but then he kind of just fell off because he wasn't sure how to actually sign up for the exam and if the credit would transfer over to our school. So a lot of my friends shared that they would love to start taking AP classes in subjects that they're passionate about, but they're unsure about where to start, how to study, or whether they'd be setting themselves up for failure. And so I think that instead of solely relying on just hiring more teachers, I think that schools should encourage and support the option of self-studying. I think that it would be greatly beneficial if schools could support students who want to self-study, because self-study can actually teach students valuable skills like time management and self-discipline. And I think that this is essential for college and beyond. So this could mean like hosting info sessions at the beginning of the year to introduce students to what self-studying could look like. It could create a database for recommended resources, or it could just assign like a staff member or teacher to kind of check in with self-studying students throughout the year, or it might just be having like a quiet space to form study groups in school to make those students feel like they're not alone in the process. So I think that like this idea of self-studying, it could provide students with the tools, and we can open doors for opportunities and make advanced coursework available to everyone, even if the courses don't exist in our course catalog.
Anybody comment?
Anybody have any questions? Good report.
Michelle, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the presentation you're hearing in a few minutes, because I think a lot of us are worried about there being district-wide, or not just right, statewide accessibility to advanced learning, and a way that to look at ways that we can pool resources. If the class is being taught somewhere else, do synchronous type learning with our areas, and we know there are some schools who certainly have an expanded offering who are willing to try to work out how that might look. So I think you'll hear a good story about that in just a minute.
Anyone else? Good report. Good first report.
Welcome.
Michelle,
Oh, yes.
excuse me, this is Mary Werner. Just an FYI, MIT offers what they call open courseware. And you can find it on the web. And you can actually sit in on many classes. So that's just another alternative for you.
Thank you.
That's the board member from Massachusetts talking to you about the Massachusetts. On record, I had to say that.
There's an R in there anywhere.
We tried to use closed captioning, but it couldn't tell us what it said.
Sister starts MIT.
All right. We had one subcommittee that met this time, and it was a legislative subcommittee, and Mr. East, you're up.
Our meeting yesterday, Mr. Chairman, was basically about the same comment that you made in your report about making sure that we were taking care of our schools across the state that fall under our vision. So, short report. You've already done the work for us.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move into our agenda items. The first one is an information item. It's an update on the Mississippi School for Math and Sciences and the Mississippi University for Women.
Good morning. Thank you on behalf of MSMS for this opportunity. To the entire board, Dr. Evans and MDE, we are very thankful for our communication and relationship with our board and with MDE and our support. Your support, we could not do our work, so we appreciate the opportunity today. And thank you to those of you who got to come and see us at MSMS last week. If anyone did not and you would like to do a drop-in at any point, we are welcome to those. In front of you, my name is Ginger Tedder. I'm the executive director, and
I'm Thomas Easterling, the Director for Academic Affairs.
And in front of you, you have a folder that has this entire slide deck. We tried to front load things that might be of interest to you about our school and your school. So as we go, if there are any questions, certainly there's a moment at the end for us to answer questions. So we are presenting today, go ahead, Dr. Easterling. We have a mission just like MDE does as well. And that mission is to make sure that we're providing learning experiences and innovative learning experiences. We want to have a global, students that are prepared for global society at MSMS. And one of our hallmarks at MSMS is our residential experience. And that creates a student leadership opportunity unlike many other schools, so that our students are prepared in multiple layers to be productive in the workforce and in their future endeavors. And then we also have an outreach mission, and that outreach is to do exactly what you suggest, Mr. Mayo, is to provide some of our resources at MSMS. We are rich in instructional teachers and opportunities at MSMS, and we would certainly be open to conversations about opening those up in other ways for the community. Some of our challenges, we're here to inform you of things, are maintaining our facilities. Those of you who visited us recently did see that we have done superficial. We look pretty, as Mr. Pruitt says. We have made an impact, immediate impact, more so on our student experience with some of the things. The pictures are in the folder. I know we're pressed for time today, so some of our superficial changes have been made. Our more in-depth changes at MSMS have occurred in the restrooms of our dorms. I'm sure you've seen pictures of some of those. Those are some more substantial changes that will take us into the future for a few years with our facilities. The increasing costs of our operations is really we're being outpaced. That's increasing exponentially, and some of the data is in the presentation as well. We just also want to grow MSMS. We want to share the MSMS experience and innovate and grow in multiple ways. And those are conversations we'd love to have with the board and with MDE going forward. Dr. Easterling, would you like to talk about curriculum?
So in the next couple of years, we will propose a new curriculum that will have some of the same traditional strengths we have had as far as content goes. We are going to make more use of the dual credit courses that we can offer through Mississippi State and through Mississippi University for Women. And we will offer our students more additional time for research projects, capstone projects, as well as some looks at points of emphasis that affect our broader culture through a senior colloquium. So they can study something like the applications of AI or disease and public policy. Issues like these that are of concern not just to our students but to the state at large. And some revision to our curriculum will give us time to do that. We are working at the details, but that is in the pipeline.
And just to introduce you, we have started our school year at MSMS, and we are currently, our student body is 200. We started with 232 students, and those are all residential students. Our facilities here, you may not know exactly how much square footage MSMS houses at the Mississippi University for Women campus. So we've provided you with a graphic here. We have 2 residence halls, Frazier Hall for our boys, Goen Hall for our girls, and they're roughly 46,000 plus square feet. If you see the dates that those halls were built, we are dealing with mechanicals behind the walls. that are original to the buildings in most cases. So that is a challenge. Our instructional buildings, we have Hooper Academic Building, a Performing Arts Complex, Shackelford Hall, and recently Shattuck Hall. Our Performing Arts has moved to a space in Shattuck Hall that was provided by MUW and their foundation for us, and we're very grateful for that. And the MSMS offices are spread out as well. We have the executive offices in Mary Wilson Home, and the student affairs and advancement offices are on different floors in Hogarth Student Center. So we have a total of 154,000 square feet, give or take a few. And if you do the budgeted math there, it's about 73 cents a square foot. We pay a $113,000 maintenance fee to MUW, and it covers that square footage, so that's the number that we have is 73 cents a square foot for the fees that we pay. So on the next slide, we've given you a little more information on what investment the state, and that state could include projects funded by the state government through MUW, through DFA, through MDE. We have done a deep dive into all of the inputs that have been put into our facilities. So the investment total is $7,827,715.60 as best as we can figure. Our facilities improvements at MSMS. And there's a plethora of list of things from 1994 to as recent as a few weeks ago in our imminent project, our HVAC project that is going in Labor Day weekend. So we just wanted to make you aware of the investment in our facilities and that we need a path forward for future investments in our facilities to continue our mission at MSMS. And because we still have some challenges, again, things look very nice on the outside. Curb appeal does matter. First impressions are important. But we have significant mechanical issues in some of our facilities that we use, and finding a solution to that going forward is a topic. In addition to that, in part of our fiscal report is our support fees that we pay to the Mississippi University for Women. I've given you from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 28 a projection. We came to an understanding with the leadership at MUW that we would take a 10% year-to-year approach for increasing our fees. They have not kept pace with some of the costs. So you will see in fiscal year 26, we are going to be paying $258,400, and then for fiscal year 27, we're going to go up 10%. There is a new item on there for human resources, and that is a brand new item. So in fiscal year 27, we will start the 10% on a $65,000 salary for an HR position to support MSMS. So if you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk about it. I put the goals down here of where we need to be as far as facilities and maintenance goes, for the goal of MUW for the support that they put into our buildings. The goal is $4 a square foot. We are at 73 cents a square foot now with our fees that we pay. So that 10% increase year to year, the goal is to get to the $617,114. Understanding those amounts and totals will change with inflation and how the economy is doing, I'm sure. So just to put perspective on the numbers. Yes, sir, Mr. Pruitt.
To clarify, the $65,000 for an HR, that's an MDE employee, or that's a subsidized an MUW employee?
That is an MUW employee and subsidized support. Yes, sir.
I had one question on the
Yes, Mr.
slide
Miller?
before.
Yes.
The maintenance fee that y'all are proposing that you would like, is that money that would go straight to y'all to do the maintenance, or does it go to the W to do the maintenance for you?
That is currently money that would go to MUW to support our facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
But you have a maintenance staff.
We have a fantastic operations department that has honestly kept us going. They have a skill set that is, please do not come and try to poach from my team, because they are what keeps us moving on most days in our facilities. We are blessed in that.
But that's a separate line item.
That is a completely separate line item for that, and those are all talking points. We would like to flesh out our operations department at MSMS to be more self-sufficient in areas.
And that $4 they're trying to go to, does that bring some of the bigger capital projects back under the W's umbrella, or will those still be standalone things that we need to appropriate for?
I'm sure those are conversations that we would have, but currently the thought is that would not put capital improvement projects back into the conversation. Correct. Yes, sir, Dr. McGee.
Regarding student funding, How many public school students do you have at MSMS?
Well, they're all now public school students, 232, around the 190 mark are public school. We also have avenues from private and from homeschool. But when they started MSMS, they all become public school students.
Okay, so a student from Madison County who goes to MSMS, right? In Madison County, there's three ways of funding, local, state, and federal. Does the local dollars go with that student when they leave a school district and go to MSMS?
No, sir, they do not, and that's a conversation we'd love to have, further conversations about the MSFF funding that comes down to students, and potentially having conversations for all state schools to divert that money to where the students are. Yes, sir.
That's, I mean, local, I thought property taxes, but state being the funding formula. It is. What is it per student? I mean, I know it's a scale now.
Around
well
60,
average.
68, 68.
So that's $6,800 a day, does not go to MSMS. Is it still allocated to the local district and the money live at the local district for that child?
I would think so.
Yes, sir, it is. We have a plan moving forward to try to rectify that situation. That would generate a substantial amount of money that just had very few conversations about where any of that would go, but they deeply need it in MSMS operations. Those dollars do not, I'm not speaking for you, but I would struggle. They do not need to be de-appropriated. We do not need to take that amount of money out of the appropriations bill that goes to MS. It needs to be additional dollars that they have to operate. Because you'll see in our presentation the difference in what other special state schools receive versus
The
others.
property tax basis, and what's still a justification for that's usually capital projects and things like that are funded that way, and they don't get the benefit of that, so the appropriations.
But the local dollar would stay. I mean, no one would ever try to take any local dollars because that would not be.
Who makes that decision to change that, the way it's funded?
The MSF funding?
Yeah.
It's a legislative.
Legislative issue.
There's already a pathway. That, Aaron and I, Ms. Meyer and I have looked at it and put a plan in place. We knew this was an issue months ago, but obviously we have to wait till the legislative session to try to get it corrected, or changed, let's say. So that's very much, we have a very strong desire, because those students never walk in the door of their district, yet they do, but the district does receive the benefit of the assessment scores. That's very important to mention. Those scores do go back to the district, but the districts are not having to expend any funds whatsoever at all. That falls, MSMS bears the financial side of that, so.
I'm sorry, I did this up last week too. She had a presentation and we train wrecked it because we started asking questions.
No problems
We'll be
whatsoever.
quiet.
I just want to highlight too that we are a state school, and our messaging to all superintendents in public school districts is that we can't do our work without you doing your work to the level you do. So we are definitely a support and enrichment program. We're part of every district in the state of Mississippi, as are the other state schools. So we want to partner and just offer the experience that we have that is different to all students in the state, as many as possible. So definitely want to highlight that we are a state school and supportive of all districts in the state. This is a very important slide for us, and we want to let you know, as our board and as MDE who supports us, that we are great stewards of money. Every year we do this slide, and we want to compare our appropriations for some of our sister schools in the contiguous states around us. And so we have Alabama Cyber, Arkansas, and Louisiana. They are STEM schools like us, residential. Some of their how they're set up are a bit different than us. But if you will look at our appropriations, which is right under the school names, MSMS has $6,162,297 appropriated for this year. We have 232 students and 13 national merit scholars for our students. And we are blessed in our student body. So I will say that they're amazing students. But we lack, I think this slide highlights a funding problem, an appropriations issue. We are doing great work. The things that we could do and the changes we could make in the landscape of education in Mississippi, in all of the state schools, with more appropriations, we will do greater things. We will continue to excel and grow MSMS.
So this is a pretty powerful slide going into the legislative session, just to highlight the differences in some of the state's appropriations. Are there any questions on this slide?
Excuse me, Ms. Taylor.
Hey, Ms. Warner, how are
Warner,
you?
Warner.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm good, fine, thank you, Ms. Bud. I have a question, if you don't mind going back to maintenance for half a second.
Yes, ma'am.
If, it's kind of a two-pronged thing. If the W will agree for, with the funding go to you, would you think you could do a better job on using that money, the money that has been appropriated rather than giving it to the W?
I think we have, our operations department at the moment needs to grow a bit in order to ever be self-sustaining in maintenance and facilities. There is also a conversation to have about the building stewardship and who is the steward of record, I guess, from the state. We do need the W now, and we have a good partnership with the W and some of the larger things that they help control, and contracts that are for our buildings that would be more costly if we were doing them on our own. So at the moment, no ma'am, I don't think we could stand alone in our facilities, but we are moving towards the ability to do that with our facilities discussions and developing a facilities plan moving forward.
We would also have to keep in mind that there are buildings at the W that we have to have, like the library or the gym.
Cafeteria.
Or the cafeteria, or the student health center, that are not within our means to take care of ourselves.
So we value that partnership, and we're yes ma'am, thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question right quick, too? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
I thought someone might have asked it, but so how often do you actually, I understand the maintenance fee where it is, but how often do you actually use the W, their services? Because when I'm sorry, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He is very, no one needs to take that.
Mr. Fondren.
Thank you. I could not remember his name.
If
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Fondren is listening, no,
Yeah,
he cannot
yeah.
ever go anywhere.
Yeah, he is, yes, yeah, he's wonderful. But, in our conversations, it seems that he and his small team do most everything anyways. So how often do you even use the W for the $136,730 we're paying them for maintenance?
When we don't have the skill set in our operations, which is less than it has ever been historically, Mr. Fondren's crew, they're able to handle the majority of our day-to-day maintenance. But when we lose systems like an elevator, or we lose systems like we have fire safety systems, or large plumbing, or HVAC, those type things, we are not self-sustaining there. But Mr. Fondren can pinch a penny and make it scream, and get the job done. And our operations crew, that's just how we have managed our life at MSMS, is making sure we know that our partners, we're all working together, but we want to be more sustainable for ourselves in many ways. So the answer to that is there's a gray area, Dr. Evans, much less in the last 3 years than we have ever had to rely. We do our own custodial, we do the majority of our painting is through us. The day-to-day tickets for fixing minor plumbing issues, those mostly run through us. But we do occasionally, I don't know exactly how many a month we would have.
But the vast majority of the time, your
majority
team
we
is
try to be
handling.
completely
So what about like
self-sustaining.
curb appeal? You handle all your own landscaping?
Oh,
You
that's
handle-
a great,
You handle
that's a
all of
great
that, don't
question.
you?
We do, there's some great pictures in there of the landscaping. We have done that. That's a pet project of mine, maybe to a fault. But we want to create spaces that really represent MSMS well, and our spaces that our students have pride in. And so we've done a lot of cosmetic landscaping issues. We do almost all of that that are around and on our areas that we use. We do have communal spaces still, and they're on call to do things like that if we need them. We try to be great partners with them and make sure that we are, everyone's limited in staffing, and those type things hit every organization. So we do most of ours. Can I say all of ours? No. The grounds for the entire campus is still a priority project for MUW. But we do take most of the responsibility for our own. And that new community space that you see in those pictures, if you're looking at them, is a popular new spot for MSMS, where our students go out and they study and they build more community amongst the students. And I think that is a point of pride for us right now because it's a great spot for the entire campus, because we're in the middle of campus, and it really does, it's become a community space for the entire campus as well. So the last slide is for future considerations, things that we'd like to have conversations about, and that's revisiting our MOA or MOU. You have copies of it. I will say that there are very many gray areas in that, and we're feeling some of the consequences from those gray areas. So I think there is definitely a need for us revisiting that with representatives from MUW, MDE, and the state board, and trying to find a path forward, because I think, in my professional opinion, we are going to continue to have misunderstandings and lack of communication is only going to exacerbate that. There is not consensus about whose responsibility some of these items we've talked about belong. It's who has responsibility for those. And I think we're all vested in sitting down and having a conversation and trying to work through that for the betterment and future of MSMS. And it is different. We have a different scenario than the other state schools. We're on a college campus and we're working with our partner there. So that is something we would like to consider. Dr. Boone, when she was here as Chief Academic Officer, pursued an LEA status waiver for the state schools in order to free up the possibility of grants, federal grants. We are not eligible as not having a status of an LEA, the special schools, to pursue some grants. And I wanted to highlight that again because we have a grant writer at MSMS as part of our administration, and we can help ourselves with that status and that waiver. Another big talking point, Dr. Eastling, I'll let you, once I introduce it, we want to open up conversations with the IHL board for scholarships for our students, the graduates at MSMS and or other state schools. Simply because that's a recruiting mechanism. It is honoring those students in the state who come to MSMS, and it encourages them to stay in the state of Mississippi afterwards. And we'd love for our board to help us have a conversation with IHL. We are lucky to have a scholarship already with Southern and with MUW, and we would love to try to negotiate that. Our other sister schools, and Dr. Eastling, I'll let you speak to that, other sister schools have MOAs about scholarships.
In the state of Louisiana, there are TOPS scholarships where all high school graduates are sort of put on a grid, and if you have a certain GPA and a certain standardized test score, you'll receive an aggressive scholarship to any in-state university. At the university, in North Carolina, the North Carolina School for Mathematics and Science has an arrangement where graduates of that institution are scholarships to any in-state public university they can gain admission to. And as a result, in those two states, you see a much higher percentage of students staying in-state for their undergraduate careers. Most recently, in Louisiana, about 70% of their graduates at LSMSA stay in-state for college. Currently at MSMS, we are at about 55%, 56% of our graduates staying in-state for college. And I believe because our students come to MSMS, they leave home early, they essentially place a bet on themselves. They're removing themselves from some scholarship opportunities like the salutatorian or valedictorian scholarships. We don't have those at MSMS. We don't have class ranking. So students are taking some risks as they come to MSMS. And they are certainly learning how to live independently, how to manage a college pace, a college schedule. They're doing many things that college students do, and I would argue we're therefore supremely well prepared for the college experience. And I think we can make a solid case to IHL for aggressively scholarshiping our graduates to keep them in state and to recognize the bet that they're placing on themselves by coming to MSMS.
Other items that we have on just to consider is MSMS becoming its own fiscal agent for the future. That is something that we are working towards with MDE, and exploring options to decrease our food costs, which reached $1 million this year for us as a residential school, and also to just highlight that our next priority needs to be critical conversations about our residence halls, specifically our HVAC situations in those buildings and some of the larger mechanicals.
Do you charge room and board?
The state has in our legislation $1,000 a year for MSMS. And that is the end of our presentation. We're happy to entertain any questions that you have.
On the LEA status and the waiver that you speak to, who can grant that? What's that look like? What's that really mean?
Following up, we're following up on the AG's opinion. That was a route we had to take. We're following up to see where we are on that. It hadn't progressed as fast as, we're fixing to get an answer.
I guess what's unique to me is you take the kids, the state's some of the absolute brightest and best. You put them in facilities that are very aged. They're underfunded in how you would support them. They're doing the most cutting edge work in some things in a chemistry lab that is certainly not modern. They lose opportunities for any number of scholarships because they lose all those Val and Sals. And every class they take is an AP level type class. So their GPA likely suffers some over had they been in a normal environment. So everything is against them. So to me, it's an amazing job what you've done to be able to continue to promote the quality of students that we talked to last week, to go there despite all those challenges. And they still show up and they love it. Incredibly bright, incredible educational opportunity. I did appreciate that, there were, one of the ladies we talked to, she wanted to take AP Japanese last year, was an interesting thing, want to take Japanese. And so in the first year that she self-studied it, because they do have that option, but they realized there were other people that might want to do that too, and so they've gone in, they have a class now because they have a professor who can teach Japanese. Well, there's probably other people in the state that may want to take Japanese. But it'd be hard to put Japanese in every district, but if you did synchronous learning on things like that, where it's a pretty specialized type deal, I have Japanese and Russian, I know, they're specialized, and you shared that with the state, they're part of those districts, you would think we could find a way to help facilitate those learning opportunities so there are people that statewide can take advantage of it. We were super impressed. I thoroughly enjoyed our visit, very educational, and you are doing a great job. I know while you're battling on a number of fronts, it was an incredible experience and we really enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank y'all very much for that presentation. Our next item is another information item regarding it's a discussion on proposed reorganization within the department related to educational accountability, and I think we need to add internal audit to that as well.
Program evaluation.
Dr. Evans.
Yes. Okay, you have this in your support documents. I'm not sure if you have it in front of you, but I know you've looked at it because you had it in your board packet. So you had the two org charts. So the org chart in my right hand, okay, so first of all, this is nothing more than an idea. You as a board just make these decisions. We at MDE do not make these decisions. These positions, it's very important that they have autonomy and they work directly with the board. And you'll see in a bit of a conversation that on a daily basis would work with myself. So I want to say that first. You can take it, you can look at it. I'm not even asking for any I'm not asking for you to, welcome to, you ask questions if you want, but there's not an expectation. I'm not asking for action to take place on it or anything else. So I think I'm clear that it's just information. So in my right hand is the current org chart. And what you see is it's just positions. There's no names. It's just the positions in which that org chart, how it falls. And you see it is the Office of Educational Accountability, and you see internal audit currently falls under it. Program evaluation, I got to get my eyes on here to see. Program evaluation, as well as the Office of Public Reporting. Those three currently fall under that. See, so the conversation or the idea here is if you were to, so the second org chart is the one that I would consider up for a proposal or up for conversation. What it does is it breaks out of educational accountability and creates, now this is not like creating an office that requires additional humans. This is just purely a reorg with the current staff that we have. But what it does is it creates an independent Office of Internal Audit and an independent Office of Program Evaluation. And you see it's very clear that they are independent offices that directly that are directly connected to the state board, And for daily operations, that's why there's, the dotted line, if you will, that works with the state superintendent. So it's very important that you see that they still remain their autonomy, they're separate offices. That's important so that the work that they have to do, that they have their own, they have autonomy there. Now, additionally, you have two additional documents. One, and basically it's a statute. It's 37-151-9, which is the Educational Accountability Statute. The one without the red is the current statute. The one in the red would be, I'm going to use the word proposed, or the idea of if there were a reorg, a change, what that wording would be. And really what this does is it just, it really would make a change that represents already what's taking place. Because the vast majority of, or the majority of all of these programmatic things that fall under educational accountability are taking place within the different program offices already. They have been for way before my time being here. But so that is the proposal. It does ensure that this, again, not to repeat myself, but there you have your separate offices for internal audit and program evaluation. I will say that I have met with the internal auditor as well as program evaluation twice, and have really come up with some pretty good ideas moving forward, trying to get ahead of whether there's a change or not, putting some ideas together, putting some ideas on paper, and getting our plans moving forward, because there is great value in both of those offices. I've really discovered ways that we can utilize those offices, the services, the expertise that's there to help move our organization, MDE, forward.
And this is not an action item. Anybody have any comments or thoughts on this, Mr. Jacobs?
Since I've been involved with internal audit and accountability for the past 2 years, working out issues that we've had to correct from the past, let me get a little historical information for y'all on this. The Internal Audit Act was created in the late 90s, I think, was in place. The act that created, the legislation that created the Office of Accountability was in 2013, I believe. So those have been in place for a period of time. In 2016, there was a Clarion Ledger article that brought up some negative things about some contracts and hiring here. Dr. Wright asked internal audit to look into that, which Sonia's office did, and turn that in to the state auditor. In September of 2017, from that original Clarion Ledger story, peer went in and did a report and made a case study of MDE with some problems. In September of 2017 also, the state auditor filed a report, did their audit, filed a report, and gave it to us, and...
Move your mic closer.
Okay. All right, okay. And they found 5 internal problems. The number one internal problem finding was the board oversight needs to be strengthened. And it went in to say that they found widespread findings indicate State Board of Education negligent in performing its oversight function, lack of appropriate oversight, and appropriate tone at the top, quote, leadership can lead to fraud, waste, and abuse. Their recommendation was that State Board of Education provide more effective, appropriate oversight of employees of the MDE, recommend implementation of new controls, policies, procedures where necessary, and, quote, wish to emphasize the importance of the appropriate tone at the top leadership. A few days later, actually the next day, Clarion Ledger had another story of which the headline was Auditor Hammers MDE Over Contracts. And Stacy Pickering was quoting that story as there was a blatant disregard for state purchasing rules and contracts, and a blatant disregard for state purchasing rules and regulations, stating they ran into a culture of obstruction. The MDE board met on the 17th, October 19th. And if you look at the video, there's a lot of discussion on this, and it got a little heated at points. There was discussion by Dr. Gavin of changes they were going to make with this, and that's where the heat got of how does that impact the internal audit and such. So there was a problem there way back when, as a concern I have, of the board got nailed back in 2017, and I don't want us to go back to, they tried to fix it, and a lot of things happening there, and quite frankly, some of Dr. Gavin's issues were pulling duties from accountability and moving into the staff, and I fear we're going to get us into that place, but I think we need to look at that part of it. One thing also I don't think has been discussed is in 2016, the board passed an internal audit charter, so we need to change that also to do that. But those are my main points, just of what I've learned in my 2 years of doing this, and history is always something we got to look at.
Absolutely, good points. I will say this, I've been involved, I've been on that committee with Bill for the last year, I believe, as well as looked at some of this. My thought process with this is the structure is the form is a necessary evil. The substance is what is important. And the ideal, the concept, as I see this, is we need to have both of these two items, internal audit and the program evaluation, to have as much independence as they can, and also that they have a direct line to report to the board. The comment that you made about the finding that the board did not have oversight, I agree with that. And I think the goal with this, however it shakes out at the end, and like I said, this is a starting point to talk. The goal is that we need to have measures, and we have some measures in place. We need to look at all of them. I think they need to be strengthened. And with the end goal that each of those two offices have the independence to do what they need to do to report to the board directly. I think it's important to also report that to the superintendent simultaneously, so we're all on the same page, because if there is a problem, we need to fix it immediately. Find the source and fix it. But, so to me, the overall goal with this is to strengthen these things to where we have transparency, and most importantly, those two offices have the autonomy to say, hey, we're not doing something right. And they have the voice to come directly to the board with no other filter in between, no layer in between, directly reporting, because that's, to me, that is the number one key that finding had, that the board didn't have oversight. If we have a direct tie to those two people, or whoever's in those positions, that eliminates, to me, that position, that issue. Yes, sir?
That's logical. Two questions for each of you. I don't have the 2017 report. You had it in your hand. Would it be easy for you to forward a copy of that, please?
Yeah.
I would love to read that, just to see. You know what, just to audit an organization of this size and to come up with 5 exceptions that need addressing is really not exceptional. An audit is to say, how can we do better? So if there's only 5, then good, we'll take a look at those, but that's not crazy, although I'd like to read it before I go any further with that. The next question is, so this looks to me, what you just said, Matt, is logical. Are we taking the existing position and just turning it into 2 positions, and it goes from financial audit and program evaluation as to 2 separate skill sets and 2 different people? Or is it because those are 2 different skill sets in one classification that didn't really fit?
Okay. Couple of points there. This is not a financial audit. This is internal audit. It's an operational thing. It could, but there's a separate piece for that we have, that kind of thing. The second thing, both of these offices already exist. They are doing this work. And it's more of an idea to at least the way I see it, to create more autonomy with them, to where they have the independence to go investigate, to report to the board and the subcommittee, hey, these are the things I think we need to look at. And the subcommittee then tells them, these are the things we want you to look at. And then when each of those look at it, they report directly to the board. There's no filter. There's no, I mean, again, the superintendent position gets the information, but it's simultaneously reported to us. To me, it's, the concept in my mind is to reduce restrictions on those two positions so they are free to do exactly what they do without any interference.
But in theory, that's what we have now.
Well, I understand, yes, but to me, this strengthens it because there's some policy change. Bill is correct. Some of our policies need to be changed, and as part of this thing is, as the whole, as we look at the whole, it needs to be changed to make sure what they're doing, what our policy says matches what they're doing. And that's what this part of the thing, it's kind of cleaning everything up. Is what is proposed, where we land, I have no idea. But that's just us to move the conversation to the next step to reach our ultimate goal of these two offices need to have the autonomy to do what they need to do to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do.
I realize.
Hold on one second, Wendy.
Mr. Jacobs kind of made it sound like we're trying to get rid of, like you're afraid that we're getting rid of the internal audit with what you were saying. Did I comprehend that wrong?
Well,
Because
let me go back.
Well,
There are
wait.
two separate offices. Internal office was one and accountability the other.
But we're not trying to get rid of any
No.
of those because the way
Well, yes and no. We're trying to get rid of the accountability off the position of that, which what Sonia had, and do away with that, which is mandated by the legislature. We have to have a legislation change to even allow this to happen.
But none of this says we're just changing the way it is. But what you were saying sounds like we're trying to do away with it completely.
We're
That's why
eliminating
I'm
the
confused.
office, yes, and that, the wording in here says that.
I think it's,
I
to
don't
his
read it
point,
that way.
I think it's, there, the way it's proposed, it would eliminate the office that Sonia had. To me, however, the internal audit and program evaluation do not change. And in my mind, again, I may be misreading it, but in my mind, it eliminates a layer between each of those offices and the board. Right now, currently, where they structured, they do not report directly to the board. They're supposed to. This eliminates that. It does not change, we are not eliminating internal audit. We can't. The law says we have to have, we're not eliminating the accountability piece because both of those are essential. It's just sort of changing the structure of how they report and making sure they have a direct line to the board.
I'm
Is the
comprehending
concept.
it that way.
Okay.
So I'm confused between
Well-
the
Well,
two. I don't know if I'm reading something
We're
wrong.
eliminating the position which Sonia had that ran it. Now, after all this happened in 2016,
Well, hold on,
17.
we're that's an idea.
Proposed,
Yes,
excuse
we're not taking any action, make sure everybody understands that.
After all this event in 2016, 17, the board put independent audit on top of, as part of Office of Accountability, of which Sonia ran.
But a position and the office are two different things.
Still had an internal audit, she just handed the Sonia, but there's still one.
But there's still
But we're-
an internal audit.
Yes, we have an
we
internal
still-
audit.
It might not
internal
have a
audit sits
position,
there.
like, there might not be a Sonia, but there's an internal audit.
There is internal audit sits there. It's
So we're not doing
who
away-
it reports to. I dealt with a lot of things from Sonia on a regular basis of questions of things. Somebody has to do that. Because no longer, that position won't have, Sonia's position won't be there to ask. So when the auditor has a question, Sam, who does she go to? The new chairman of the subcommittee or to Lan? I don't know, it's just, it mixes. But bottom line, all this is legislated, and to change even Sonia's office, I mean, remove her, has to get approval of the legislature.
And one other thing to clarify, Sonia was not the internal auditor. She was not.
She worked for it, or oversaw.
The way it is just to give you a visual,
I'm
Sonia.
sorry, maybe I'm just,
Internal
there
audit,
seems like there's a lot of
program
confusion
evaluation.
between what you're saying and what he's saying and what I'm reading.
Understood. I think that this is good, because we need to flesh all this out. And part of this is this is to start this conversation. I don't know if we're going to have a decision or a recommendation by next meeting or by January. I don't know, but we need, this is to move that ball forward, to clean all this up, to make very clear lines. To me, again, my personal goal is to make sure at the end of the day, however it's structured, the internal auditor and the person over the program evaluations have a direct tie to the board. How it looks like, it really matters less to me, but more of what they actually do. And even to get to that point, I think there's things we have to clean up, so.
Can I ask one question? When Sonia was in that role, did Sonia independently direct the activities of internal audit and set that scope, review those audits? And did she do the same for the day-to-day work of program evaluation? Or was that dotted line relationship with the superintendent still where they got daily direction from, but they always had the opportunity to be independent? Because that's me, I work in the bank, I have the auditors work for our board and our audit committee, but I manage their day-to-days. I have to approve their vacation and their expense reports, because they need daily stuff, but they work for the board.
I'll let you give your opinion. Let me give you my opinion. My opinion of all that is that it was very unclear of how it happened. It was not, and that's part of what, in my mind, we need to clean up.
Does
to
this
make it clear.
improve that?
This is a suggestion of how to clean that up. I think we still need to talk some more about how it is, but the ultimate goal is to make sure it's clear, to where each of the people that are head of these positions have a clear directive of what they're doing, to where, and plans are in place, so there's not 18 calls a week to Bill about it, because that's not what that committee's job. The committee, to me, it should be, these folks should get some direction and go implement. And the line should be from the board. The board, hey, this is what we want you to do, you go do it. And there shouldn't be they should have the freedom to do it without any impediment.
To clarify your question, Code 37-151-9, the State Board of Education and State Superintendent of Education shall establish within State Department of Education a special unit at the division level called the Office of Educational Accountability. The director of the Office of Educational Accountability shall hold a position comparable to a deputy superintendent and shall be appointed by the State Board of Education with the advise and consent of the Senate. He shall serve at the will and pleasure of the State Board of Education and may employ necessary professional, administrative, electrical staff. The director, which was Sonia, of the Office of Educational Accountability shall provide all reports to the legislature, the governor, Mississippi Commission of School Accreditation, and the State Board of Education, and respond to all inquiries. That's what has to be changed in the law, that Aaron is changing that, I forget the actual word, that we're doing away with that job effectively. But we can't until that, so we have to kind of decide what we're going to want to do.
Right.
And the board, and my purpose of the history is realize something happened back then, and we got slammed. I don't want that to happen again, so as we're doing all this, let's be sure we've covered all those bases.
And just for clarification, the proposed technical amendment does not remove any of those duties and responsibilities. It just brings the agency actually into compliance, because that office is no longer doing that work. Because the landscape of the department itself, the technology that's done, a lot of those things are produced in OTSS or through the Office of Accountability, Dr. Vanderford's shop, and reports are produced by other program offices. So what that would do is you still have program evaluation, you still have internal audit, which internal audit doesn't fall under the Office of Educational Accountability law, is a separate law, which is one of the other reasons to pull it out in its own independence, because it is a separate law. But the technical amendment brings us into compliance as an agency. All the work is still being done. There's still educational accountability. It just makes it clear that it's not under this Office of Educational Accountability. It's the State Department doing it in compliance with the law for the State Board of Education.
And kind of put a bow on it for now. Think of this as the first draft of the idea to get all this stuff compliance and to make sure that we all are comfortable that the stuff that we're supposed to have oversight, as Bill pointed out from 2017, that we were dinged for, that doesn't happen again, and that our policies and the way things are structured for stuff that is supposed to directly report to us is actually happening. So, good conversation. Like I said, this is something this is going to be an ongoing conversation, but this is sort of the kickoff, because we want to be transparent to everybody about, hey, this is what our goal is, and how can we get there. All right. Our next information item is the 24-25 Mississippi Academic Assessment Program results. Dr. Vanderford.
It's our turn now. I'm sorry, I was not
You're-
following
you
the
were-
amended agenda.
You're so ready to move forward.
Good morning. This is an annual item that is presented jointly between the Office of Accountability and the Academic Office. In your backup material is nearly a 200-page report that includes an executive summary of the MAP and MAP-A results, as well as a listing of the assessment results for the 24-25 school year by school, and those results will be released immediately following the board meeting today for the public. So since the data was released, the MDE, the vendor, Center for Assessment, and our technical advisory committee has conducted numerous post-assessment analyses of the results to gain a better understanding of the multiple factors that may have influenced these results. Overall, the 4 content areas showed a slight drop in proficiency, which is unusual for Mississippi. Over the last 2 days, MDE staff, we've been engaged with our technical advisory committee. Dr. McGehee joined us the first day, and we engaged in in-depth conversations regarding these results and what the next steps for the agency would look like. One of the comments that one of the TAC members continued to say resonated with me, and his quote that I think a lot of people said after the meeting they were going to steal was, "The trend is your friend," and how important it was to look at not just any single year of data or data points, but to follow the trends, which we do on an annual basis through these executive summaries. And, they reminded us that you expect data to fluctuate from one year to the next. However, over the last decade, Mississippi hasn't seen that fluctuation with dips. We have, with the exception of COVID, we've seen steady increases in our overall proficiency. So the results this year has given us the need to take, a deeper dive into what the results really mean. And another reminder that we share and that they shared with us is the focus on the NAEP results, because it is the NAEP results that compares us to other states in the nation. And then it's very important to take those NAEP results when we receive those and compare those to our statewide assessment results. So if you are improving in proficiency in both of those, on both of those assessments, NAEP and statewide results, it indicates that the state is improving academic outcomes. And I think we can sit here today without a lot of conversation and validate that. So this presentation today is going to focus on a deeper dive into the proficiency rates, and we'll look at that by grade and content areas, as well as MDE's next steps on prioritizing instruction and continuing to improve student outcomes in Mississippi. And we'll start with the PowerPoint presentation. The first couple of slides, as you always know, begins with our vision and mission. These results focus on goals 1 and 2, and that's another conversation that we spent a lot of time talking with TAC about this week, and they noted how impressed they were with the state of Mississippi to always come back to what the goals of the board's strategic plans are and how we focus our work on those goals. And then we, as a result of that, see overall gains over time. Alan?
All right, so I'll just step through brief description of the assessment for those that maybe are not familiar with all of the details, and then we'll talk about the individual subject results, subject level results, and then grade level results. So the Mississippi Academic Assessment Program, or MAP, is the suite of assessments that the state administers each year that gauges students' knowledge, skills, and academic growth from grades 3 through high school. We do assessments in grades 3 through 8 in English language, arts, and math, grades 5 and 8 science, and we do end-of-course assessments in high school in Algebra 1, English 2, Biology, and U.S. History in 2025. The MAP assessments are designed to inform how students are doing, but also to help inform instruction with teachers and to provide parents an update on how their child is progressing in school. So the MAP assessments are given, there's 2 windows. There's one in the fall for end-of-course assessments for high school students on a block schedule, and then the main administration is in the spring, and last year was March 31st through May 16th. The MAP assessments are administered online. We do have accommodations for students with disabilities that can include paper pencil forms. The assessment results, the assessments include all students that were tested in the 24-25 school year, regardless of their enrollment, as long as they were assessed. End-of-course assessments can include students that retest, so those are excluded from these results. This is just the initial assessments. And then we report assessment results in both the scale score, a numerical score that is given for each assessment, and then the proficiency level, which are described there. As Dr. Vanderford mentioned, we've seen a slight reduction at the state aggregate in proficiency in all 4 subject areas compared to the 23-24 school year. And I will step through that as we look through the following slides. We'll start with math results, and you'll see that we had a 1.8 percentage point decline from the 24 school year. And this graphic kind of just demonstrates or shows what Dr. Vanderford had mentioned, that we have for years seen this incremental increase in proficiency rates, and this is the first time in a while that we have not seen that change. I will also point out that at the state aggregate, a 1.8 percentage point change, we have to look at whether or not that's a meaningful change. We're not talking about significance here, because this isn't a sample, this is a census assessment. But we could expect in general that changes under 3 percentage points could be attributed to variable changes from year to year that could look at many different reasons, which I'll go into further as we look further, that may or may not signify a decrease in student performance in general. So another slide that we want to look at, this one is a new graphic for this year. It just breaks down the different performance levels and the percentage of students in each performance level so that you can see the movement of students across those performance levels for each year. And we'll see that for other subjects as well. And then this is the change for ELA at the state aggregate. We're looking at a 0.4 percentage point change.
I'm sorry, do you mind backing up a slide, please? The minimal performance at 4.1 compared to 2.9, I mean, your disparities seem to be at that level, even going back to 2020, 2021. You know, we're 1.8% delta. It's right there, or it could be right there.
So in the previous slides, we were reporting on what is proficient and advanced, so that would be those top two shaded areas. So our declines in those two boxes would be what would be represented in that previous slide, this one here. So this is proficient and advanced. Yep. So we've probably seen some movement reflected where those shifts have gone down.
But looking on the other end of that, I think to Mike's point, is that our bottom end, we didn't make as much improvement in the bottom. Our top end still really well performing, but the absolute bottom of the group is where we had some loss of our least proficient learners.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we would want to see that minimal rating down there at the bottom declining year over year.
Yeah, I think you'd want to see more people in category 1 and 2 get to category 3 as a pass.
Right.
And that's probably, I wouldn't say more important, but more meaningful for what we're doing for education as a whole. If we can move up the bottom, have a greater impact.
Yes, and another thing to point is the gains that students can make when they are performing at the bottom proficiency level is pretty easy to do relative to if they're in that passing band or the proficient band. Yep.
One small addition in going through these is, it's just an idea that obviously passing and proficient are two different levels in our state. So we are a little concerned that, that the focus may be too much on just passing and not necessarily proficiency. And that's not just, we need to just bring that up. That's, a lot of that is through conversations that we have with the field. You know, that conversation is around, I mean, I was there for 25 years. It's around, get them to the pass mark, get them to the pass mark. So obviously, that is a concern that we have, and that we're going to try to address that in the new standard setting coming up. So I don't want to chase that rabbit. I just wanted to say that out loud, though.
And of note here, this is looking at ELA. You do see a decrease in that minimal proficiency level from last year. You also see the decrease in the basic. You're seeing an increase in pass and a decrease in the advanced level. So we've seen some shift down from advanced, and we've seen some shift up to pass. ELA. Again, looking at the overall state aggregate. Going to move to the next subject, but we'll come back as we look at grade level results. So this is science. As I mentioned, we've seen a decrease in all 4 subject areas. Here we have a decrease of 2.5 percentage points. Science is in 5th and 8th in biology, just as a reminder. And then this is our proficiency levels for science. And then one more, U.S. history. So we had a decrease here of 1.2 percentage points from 2024 to 2025. U.S. history is just given in high school and end of course. And again, our proficiency levels on this assessment. Okay, I'm going to switch back to math as we look at the different grade levels and their performance. So just some key findings, which we'll look at primarily on the next slide. Math had some changes, some increases in proficiency in some grades and decreases in others. And you'll see here on this slide, we've got a pretty meaningful decrease in proficiency in grade 5 and grade 8. and the other ones are pretty moderate. We can see that reflected in these grade level results. So this shows you the trend over time at each grade level. These are students who are, again, proficient or advanced on the assessment. I wanted to point out that you'll see that jump there in grade 5 last year, and you'll see it again here in grade 8, a big jump last year compared to the prior year. Those happen to be the two grades that we saw the most significant or the most meaningful declines overall, grade 5 and 8. So these are some things that we recognize in the data, and we try to look for cause in the variation from year to year. Is this predictive of what could happen going forward? So some things that we've looked at are, when I talk about variables, are cohort effect. Is this a particular cohort of students that are reflected in the data? Has there been an in-count change, the number of students that are assessed in these grade levels? And so these are things that we have processed through some analysis, and we're not finding something that is a particular answer to the question of what's causing the change. There are some suggestions that these variables may be in play, but not any one in particular. And the other thing that we wanted to point out was the grade level results across math and ELA were not consistent. So where you see the changes in mathematics in grades 5 and 8, you won't see that match up with ELA. Again, indicative of maybe some variations that don't necessarily answer a solid question as to why are the changes occurring.
Good morning. So I would like to address, in light of the data that's been shared, specifically in mathematics and the specific grade level data. As you all know, the Office of Academic Education, we're perpetually looking at our coaching model and our supports to determine how they need to be adjusted or revised. And we've been doing that with the data since we've received it. We have to date determined that with our literacy and math support schools, we have seen some commonalities in those schools that show gains both in mathematics, has showed gains in both mathematics as well as literacy. And so I want to share a couple of those with you.
Dan wasn't muted, he got it.
Okay. So, as I was saying, did everybody get that number?
Wouldn't happen if he's here in person.
Hey. But some of the commonalities we did see in our literacy support schools is we have been working on high-quality instructional materials in our state for about 5 years now. And many of the schools that showed gains, both in literacy and mathematics, had 2+ years of HQIM implementation. So we believe that with that, we can see an impact that's being made. We also, and this is more anecdotal, but we also recorded that in the schools where we have administrator support, in the way of supporting their teachers, but also attending professional development and learning about strategies in the classroom, you find that those schools are the ones that are making gains, not losses. Retention of teachers, okay, particularly if the teacher's retained in the same grade. And then the other one in literacy specifically is teachers who have gone through our AIMS training, which is our science of reading training that we provide to all teachers. So none of that is really shocking, but I wanted to mention those commonalities. So what, yes, sure. Yeah.
We're going to provide math teachers in 37 schools.
Mm-hmm.
How do we select those schools?
It's a great question.
What's that process? Are they?
Yeah. All right, so those schools are selected. What we typically do is we look at 2 years of data, map data, and make a determine what are our lowest performing schools, and we identify our schools that way, both in mathematics as well as literacy, okay? That's a great question. So to your point, we are going to address six strategies, one of which is our number of supports. So in mathematics here, you'll see that we are going to serve 37 schools in 28 districts in the beginning of the year. We're currently doing that. Our coaches are boots on the ground. They're in the schools. We also are hoping this year to contract with retired math teachers in order to build that capacity. One of the things we have experienced in mathematics that's a little different than ELA in literacy is math teachers are few and far between. And so for us to get math teachers, we're having to take math teachers out of the classroom, and that's not what we want to do. So we're going to really work to try to work with retired math teachers in any way we can. You know, if we have to assign them to a specific school and use them for a limited time, we're gonna work with some of our retired math teachers. Our second is all students, of course, being proficient, and I want to talk to you about this for a second. All of our math coaching supports, I want to remind you, those are to build capacity of the teacher. So when our math coaches go in, they're not tutoring students. They're not, you know, that they're working with the teacher and building capacity of the teacher. And so to Dr. Evans' point, we believe that when we do that, we are pushing students to proficient. It's not that it's not essential that students grow. They have to grow. But their academic success and grade level, they need to be proficient. And so that's what we do when we go in. And so in mathematics, our instructional delivery is the 8 standards of mathematical practices. And if you're not familiar with those are basically the skills and the behaviors students need to exhibit in mathematics in order to be successful. It's not all about the content and memorizing. A couple of the standards is make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. Reason abstractly and quantitatively. Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Those are the 8 elements. And so we really focus in on them and not standard 1, 2, 3. It's teaching the skills and the behavior that make you a stronger mathematician. We also focus in on the effective mathematics teaching practices. So not only what students, the skills and behaviors, but also as a teacher, how do I impart that with my students? So we're going to continue to hone in on that and try to help our teachers understand the importance of the SMPs. I also wanted to mention to you the difference in remediation and intervention. In a lot of our schools, there's I wouldn't say in a lot, but in some of our schools, there is a misunderstanding of the difference between remediation and intervention, okay? Remediation, we spend a lot of time in remediation helping students master previously taught information, okay? And we want to partner internally to really focus our teachers on intervention, which is proactive. It's working to get those students to their grade level so that they're less at risk. And one of the ways we're going to do that, both in mathematics and literacy, is we are partnering, and I'll mention this in a minute, but we're partnering with the Office of Intervention Services, both in math and literacy. We are trying to bring on board additional boots on the ground who specialize in interventions, as well as dyslexia, as well as English language acquisition. And so we believe if we can take our literacy experts and we can take experts in those areas and partner them together, that we can move from the remediation to more of the intervention with our students, which I think is going to make a difference. It's the difference in students passing and students making it to proficiency, okay? We want to, I mentioned the high quality instructional materials, both in mathematics and literacy. We're going to continue to champion that and talk about what a critical role that plays. Supporting teachers and administrators, and I put in here because I think it's important, the implementation of HQIM with fidelity and resist picking back up old and outdated materials. I, having been a teacher myself, high school teacher, once you get your catalog of lessons and instruction, it's, you own that, and it's hard to get rid of. And so when we bring in a HQIM, teachers are trying to do it in tandem with what they used to do versus, and so we're really working on the schools diving into HQIM. Grader supports. In mathematics specifically, we want to continue our Moving Math in Mississippi, which are our regional trainings. We had our first annual conference last year, which is Every Student Counts conference. We plan to grow that. We had wonderful participation in that. We're going to have monthly coaching meetings, and that's going to be among the coaches that we employ that go out into the districts and really focus on the data and how we can use that data to exact change in those schools. And then, of course, standard-specific professional development. And then finally, expansion. We currently are hosting our first Mathematics Coaching Academy of Mississippi, which is MCAM. We hosted the first session this summer. We had about 24 that signed up for it. And I understand, when I talk about building capacity, this MCAM is bringing coaches from districts in and teaching them coaching model, okay? How do you talk with your teachers? How do you deal with resistance from teachers? How do you, because coaching is very different than teaching. And so we're working on building capacity not only in our classroom, but amongst our coaching staff that are either hired at the school level or hired at the district level. It's kind of a train the trainers, yes, sir. And then, of course, with the retired teachers or educators and residents, trying to get more capacity here at the department. I did want to focus on this. Dr. Evans mentioned that we met with the speaker a few weeks ago, and one of the things that we talked with him about was expanding our math initiative here in the state. And we are really focused on grades 2 through 6. Those are known as what is known as the make or break window of mathematics. So, for example, you may look at these scores and say, well, why aren't you focused on 8th grade? Well, if you look at the trend in mathematics or the standards in mathematics, grades 2 through 6, if those students do not gain fluency in computation, conceptual understanding, they are going to struggle in middle school and high school, okay? So if we don't build that base in grades 2 through 6, then when they get to 8th grade, they do not have what we call that algebraic thinking, because our standards go from basic number sense to algebraic thinking. And so we're really trying to look at it as a science and what we need to do with our students at every grade level to ensure that all grade levels are scoring at proficiency. So.
Okay, I'll move back to English Language Arts, and we'll go through the same information. So, again, this information will primarily be reflected on the next slide, but we saw proficiency increases in grades 5, 6, and English 2 in ELA. And then our decreases of note would be in grades 3 and 4, particularly in grade 3 at a decrease of 8.4 percentage points. As I mentioned before, this doesn't align with the decreases in math in grades 5 and 8. Looking at the specific grade levels, you'll see that trend where you've got a significant or large increase last year in grades 3 and 4. Not as large in grade 4, but then the drop off this year. Grades 5 and 8, you'll see here just are fairly level across these years. We saw a little bit of an increase in grade 5 in ELA. Pretty big jump in grade 6 this year. So if that trend continues that we saw in the prior grades, like grade 3 here, we might expect a decrease in grade 6 next year if that data holds out. Again, just some variables that we're looking at, not necessarily solid in answering our questions.
Do you also look at the kids, the proficiency of the kids in grade 6, and the same kids in grade 7, and the same kids in grade 8?
Yeah.
So it's not, so when this could account for curriculum pieces of it, but if you have the same kids, you have an idea of how they're doing as well. But it's looked at both ways, isn't it?
Yeah, that is one of the analyses that we look at. Yeah. We're looking for that cohort effect. Okay, we'll talk about next steps for
All right.
literacy.
So let's talk about literacy. Again, we have the same 6 strategies. In literacy, may look a little bit different, but the strategies are the strategies. We are going to increase the number, well, we have already increased the number of literacy coaches. Last year, we were serving 65 schools. Currently, boots on the ground, we're in 95 schools. And we are going to continue to grow that. We still have not reached our pre-pandemic numbers of coaches for our original coaching model, but we're working back toward that. So that's exciting. The other thing is...
Hired a group of 30.
I'm sorry?
Just hired a group of 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that money or bodies?
Bodies. That's bodies. Those are, yeah. And each coach, we determine how we populate the schools the same way. And each coach serves 2 schools, and they're in those schools every day. And so what they do is it's kind of like an A-B schedule. They do 3-2. And so they're in a school, in a classroom, or in a learning walk, about 10 days out of a month. So they're either 10 and then 10. So it's a lot of good capacity for these schools. I do want to mention this. When I came on board 3 months ago, however many months ago it was, it seems like a long time. But when I came on board, one of the things I looked at, literacy coaching, there's only one way, effective way, to teach the science of reading. I mean, it's like, if we're going to have a literacy coaching model, then any literacy capacity that we deploy to school districts needs to be following that same model. So we have worked really hard over the last 3 months to work with what we call our SIP coaches. Those are literacy coaches paid for out of IDA funds in the special ed office. And so we have populated our schools so that our SIP coaches, our literacy special education coaches, as well as our literacy coaches, are going into schools in tandem and working with both general ed teachers as well as special ed teachers, okay, to ensure that both sets of teachers have the capacity to help our students reach proficiency, okay? So that's very exciting. We're very excited about that. All students proficient. Again, I don't really want to add too much to this because proficiency is our target, both in math as well as in literacy. But our literacy coaches, they believe that literacy is a gift and a human right. In the last couple of weeks, I was able to visit 5 elementary schools that got the Science of Reading Award, and that's what I told them. You know, literacy, your ability to read is going to be the greatest gift that you receive. You may not know that right now, but it really will be. And so we are always trying to get school districts, teachers, administrators to look past passing and what do we need to do to get our students to proficient. So we'll continue to do that. I won't dwell on remediation and intervention. I mentioned earlier in mathematics that we're going to have the partnering with the intervention services, both in literacy and mathematics. So we're looking forward to that and the progress we'll see there. HQIM, we do have some really good high quality instructional materials in literacy. And when our coaches go into a school or if they offer professional development, they identify the materials that those teachers are using, and everything that they do is based on those materials. It's not a one size fits all. They are coaching to those materials, but how to teach the science of reading. And then greater supports, we are going to continue. We've got several series in literacy that we work on. All of these are professional development. The Learning Walk module, for example, that's a recorded. So our coaches record it, it's out there, and it teaches both administrators, administrators, how to do how to do an effective learning walk. Okay, what does that look like? What are you looking for to build that capacity in administrators? And then we have a virtual coaching series. So besides LCAM, which is an in-person, we also have a virtual coaching series to, again, just build that capacity in the districts. We can't be everywhere all the time, but if we can build that capacity, then we'll see that. And then finally, I want to point this out. I'm not going to dwell on this much, but expansion. The middle one is the Mississippi Educational Prep Program Literacy, MIPPLE. Don't you like that, Mr. Pruitt? MIPPLE. But I always put the title up there because I know the acronym. We are actually working with currently 13 of our post-secondary institutions that have EPP programs. We meet on a quarterly basis and we talk about the science of reading. So not only are we working with practicing teachers, but we're also working with our EPPs to ensure that what they're doing in their programs is going to produce teachers who can come out and do what we're doing with our in-service teachers, okay? So it's like two fronts. It's like a war. We're fighting the war on two fronts, working in the classroom and working with those pre-service teachers who haven't quite made it to the classroom. I think that's important. And then the last thing, real quick, we'll be bringing more information about this, is when we did meet with the Speaker's office, we are recommending hopefully additional legislation that will be a catalyst for our adolescent literacy initiative, which will focus on grades 4 through 8. So we will have more to come on that.
Okay, I'll touch briefly on science. So in science, this is our 6th administration of our science standards, and we showed an increase in proficiency in biology. I'd also note that we saw a notable increase in English 2 and Algebra 1 held steady. So our high school assessments we did well in this year. But we also saw some decreases in grade 5 and 8 science. And this just looks at those different grade levels. Okay, so Wendy, did you want to say anything about science?
Yeah, I want to mention, I won't talk about U.S. history because obviously 2025 was the last administration, but science, of course, will continue to administer. I will let you know that in the next couple of months, we will be bringing what we call readopted standards in science for you to look at and to send out for public comment. That is not an overhaul of the standards. It was just an opportunity to let the field comment on those standards. They are a 2018 adopted set of standards, and so we want to try to, in 2025, just provide the opportunity for the field to make adjustments if need be, and that's why we call readopted as opposed to revise. So that's the one thing we're doing. And the other thing we're doing is with those readopted standards, we are going to do textbook adoption for science, and that, when we talk about old textbook adoption, that's what high-quality instructional materials are now, okay? And so we will go through that process this year so that our science teachers across the board, but particularly in 5th and 8th grade biology, they will have high-quality instructional materials available to them that align with the standards that you guys will see here in the next month or two. So.
All right, U.S. history, this was the last year for that administration, and we saw a slight decline in proficiency consistent with other subject areas. This just shows that decline. This is our trend over time since we set standards. I just also wanted to point out the increases in pass rates. So these are the assessments that require passing for students, grade 3 in order to matriculate to grade 4. So we saw an increase in the pass rate for grade 3, but we also saw either relative unchanged or a slight increase in pass rates among the other end-of-course assessments that require passing. And I'll turn it back over to Dr. Vanderpool.
Okay, at this time, we'll do a few district recognitions as part of our presentation. So we had 5 districts that were in the overall top 10 for at least 2 subject areas. And you can see those are Jackson County, Madison County, Petal School District, Poplarville, and Union Public. We also had 5 districts that were in the overall top 10 for 3 subject areas. That was Clinton, Enterprise, Oxford, Pass Christian, and Union County. And finally, 2 districts that were in the overall top 10 for 4 subject areas, and that is Long Beach and Ocean Springs. I'll move through the remaining slides fairly quickly. This is the first year that we've included the MAP A results in with our summary. We are not, we don't have the trend data, but as you know, the MAP A is the alternate assessment that's administered to students with significant cognitive disabilities who meet the eligibility criteria as outlined in a student's IEP. Similar to the MAP assessments, there's a fall administration for schools on a 4x4, and then the spring administration. The content areas are the same as MAP, with the exception of U.S. history. The assessment results for retesters are not included in the adult results that we'll show you. And as with MAP, the results are reported in 2 ways, the skill score and the performance level. The difference here is with the MAP A assessment, we only have 3 performance levels rather than 5. So this is a state level view of each of the content areas and the students performing at each of those levels, basic, passing, and proficient. This is a state level view of the math results by grade level, grades 3 through 8 in high school. And then for ELA, the same, grades 3 through 8 in high school. And then science. So a couple things that we'll note. We will be working to revise or to just overhaul, I guess you would say, the MAP A assessment. Currently, it's not administered online, a little bit cumbersome. I think maybe the districts would describe that more so than I did, but we do have, in the new RFP that was released, plans to develop new items to change, convert to online administration for those students that do not need paper administration. So lots of changes in this program coming forward. I know you've heard us say this before. We are in violation of the federal law. We do exceed the 1% assessment limit for students with cognitive disabilities. The law states that you can't assess more than 1% on the alternate assessment. A little bit of conflict there with another federal law, an IDEA, because it doesn't have a cap for the number of students that can be administered the assessment. It only requires that the IEP include a statement of why the alternate assessment is the most appropriate assessment for the student. This is where we currently are. We're, for the second year, we've been denied a waiver. We have been implementing corrective actions and undergone technical assistance as assigned to us by USDOE. And I just feel like it's important to note that Dr. Evans, after receiving our second waiver denial, commissioned a study from a third-party vendor. And that involves 2 programs within the MDE. For accountability, it's the Office of Student Assessment, and for academic education, it's the Office of Special Education. The vendor collected and has analyzed multiple data resources to determine the factors that may be contributing to Mississippi's high participation rates. The data sources included interviews with MDE staff. They surveyed statewide special education directors. They've looked at multiple years of student-level assessment data. They've combed through MDE policies and guidance documents. So the interviews and surveys really focused on what's the definition of an SCD student, how do we identify them, are there any misclassifications or reassignments, what does MDE's monitoring protocols look like, and are the LEAs adhering to the guidelines and the corrective action plans that MDE may have in place for the LEA. The draft report does outline several state-level procedural and capacity challenges that we have or that exist within the MDE. It also outlines the LEA challenges that might influence their higher participation rates on the MAP-A assessments. So with a final report that we should have soon, we have the report in draft form, but soon to be finalized, it will outline recommendations and actions that MDE will implement to reduce our participation rates and become compliant with federal law. And we have already, although we don't have the final reports, we've been working collaboratively across our offices to address the issues that we know are there. So this will be a conversation moving forward that both the state board as well as our LEAs will have a lot of conversation, because we look forward to a lot of changes, beginning with maybe some revisions to some guidance documents, to the training that we provide for LEAs, et cetera. So, Dr. Evans, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just say we've been out of compliance for many years here with this issue, and there are a number of ways some states have addressed it. One of the ways that states have addressed it is they have lowered the IQ requirement for this, or excuse me, yes, increased, I'm sorry.
Increase.
I'm having a moment, aren't I? Increase the IQ requirement for this. That we're trying to fix it in a way to where it doesn't create an undue burden on our school districts. And also, my stance on this has been, and that's why we commissioned the study, is what is the appropriate percent? Because 1% may not be appropriate, but before we could really make a hard argument as to what we feel like the appropriate percentage is, we have to make sure that we've done our due diligence to get to that actual number in our state. Because, the goal here is, while it is currently at 1%, we're going to take care of our students and do what we're supposed to do to take care of kids. We're just trying to get to the bottom of it. But I will tell you, we took the approach of a very aggressive approach. Basically, I told the center, I was like, look, we want to do an autopsy of what we're doing, basically. We need to get to I'm tired of it. It's a bad, been dealing with this for years. We want to get this fixed. And that's basically what happened. So, and we're addressing it, moving forward, very aggressively addressing it, moving forward. And I want to say, I am very pleased, like extremely pleased, with the coordination of the two program offices that are associated with that. That is a huge change, the academic side and so just that coordination together, because that's what has to happen, because you got to look at it on both sides. And we've clearly delineated whose responsibility each side is, and everybody has buy-in, and we'll get it corrected. So,
What's the penalty?
Right now, we began, the law went into effect, I think, in 2015. We started submitting waivers, 16, 17. So we've always exceeded the 1%, but for multiple years, we received a waiver. Our waiver was approved, and then all of a sudden, they weren't approved. So right now, it's the corrective actions that we're writing and implementing for USDOE. They did, like I said, assign us to some technical assistance advisors, so we went through that process last year. It could lead to financial sanctions, so the withholding of funds, but we are rapidly working to address the
Yeah.
issue
And I
before
wanna
we
say,
have any stronger
we're worried about
sanctions.
Mississippi here, but we are one of many states that, it's irrelevant, it is relevant so that you know that. We're worried about Mississippi. This is not but we're one of many, many, many states that is dealing with the same issue.
And I assume we look at it by districts, and it's probably
We have.
a couple of districts that make up the majority of it, and most districts are compliant.
No, we have,
50-50?
There are some outliers.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah,
But-
there's a number of outliers.
But we have, in the time I've been on board, we're looking at everything as minor as course codes, like how they're putting kids in courses, to whether they should be identified. They may be developmentally delayed until they're 10, you know? Some states define that at age 8. Is that making an impact? I mean, you're saying, so we're looking at very minor things as well as policy changes, you know, how we
So, yeah,
do.
there's-
So it's a lot of factors that could help with this. I don't know that we'll ever get below the 1%, because for our state, that may not, we may decide that's not appropriate. But we are going to work on getting it to its appropriate percentage.
And another simple example, in looking at the data, when Dr. Sampsell first started digging and taking a deep dive into that, I mean, we found that students enrolled in the high school courses were testing multiple times on the MAP-A assessment, but once they reach the pass or proficient, it's just like the MAP, you're only required to take that. But we had districts that were continuing to enroll those high school students and
Populating into
testing
that.
them every year. So we just, you know, we're looking at every thing that might, every possible, you know, impact.
Anyone have any other questions or comments? One question I have for you is all the coaching, which all the strategies and improvement, to me, that's more important than the data of what we're doing next. For the schools and or districts who are repeat offenders of decreased performance, are they mandated or required to get coaching? To participate, to accept the coaching?
No.
Okay.
They are not. We actually, when they populate, we actually have, it's, for lack of a better word, kind of an MOU, which establishes the expectations of that school to receive supports, and then what we will do. And then it is up to the local educational agency to decide whether they accept those services or not.
Okay.
Do we regularly have schools that don't accept services?
Do I know?
Do we regularly have schools that don't accept services?
I wouldn't say regularly, but we do have schools that deny the services, yes.
Can I speak to that?
I'll make just the observation, that's awful.
Yeah, I mean, every school I've been involved
It
in my
is, I
whole
mean,
life.
it's, you're not paying
always looking
attention
for
to the
help.
students. But anyway, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so coming back to that MOU, I understand legally we have to refer to it as the MOU. I'm looking at it as a contract personally. That's my opinion. We have changed the wording of that to be much stronger and this is also part of just a real deep dive and an alignment of all the school improvement, all the services that we offer to districts. That language has been strengthened tremendously, as well as we have put a dollar amount of, because there's a astronomical amount of financial resources, whether it be in human capital, the financial piece that we're pouring into districts. And it, like Ms. Clemens was saying, we have clearly articulated what their expectations of us should be, as well as what our expectations of them should be. And that is to participate, and we're not trying, this is not, there is no way, shape, form, or fashion is MBE trying to do a hostile takeover of anyone's instructional program in their school district. But we do expect if we provide you with the resources that you coordinate, participate with us to move students forward. So in this.
That's a pretty reasonable expectation.
Yes, sir, it's pretty, yes, sir, that's pretty, yes, sir, so in that, what'll happen is if a district, so their board will approve that MOU, like I said, I'm referring to it as a contract personally because I feel that strongly about it. Their superintendent will sign it, their board president will sign it, the state superintendent will sign it. And if they do not live up to their end of the bargain, if we don't live up to our end of the bargain, we will handle our end. If they do not live up to their end of the bargain, then we will give them a warning, and then we'll pull our services and give it to a district that wants it. And when that happens, a certified letter will go to each board member as well as the superintendent, and we'll speak with the lawmakers to cover those districts, because we're not playing with this. There are districts that want this support, want these services, and the days of someone, as soon as our coaches leave, going and right behind us and say, "Don't worry about that, just do it the old way," those are done. Because there are people that want the services. So that's a different stance on that process, but it's very if someone's not accepting the support, or basically turning a blind eye to it, that's completely unacceptable in my opinion. And as adults, we have to have ramifications for our actions. And I will tell you there were some districts that did refuse literacy coaches last year. And some of them failed tremendously. And I'm sure that we will have no problem with them wanting to, I think they've called begging for them back now. So, and those that refused, I literally picked up the phone and called and said, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" And I'm getting into the weeds here, but I mean, sure. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And they did. And you see what happened. So, but anyway, sorry. I just needed to say that publicly.
The only other observation I have is data is great, it's great, and I completely understand you can't look at 1 year to see, 1 year does not make a trend. However, I think this is a reminder that, as Ms. Clemens specifically said, pass is not the goal. It's proficient. And we need to focus, okay, this is a reminder that, hey, you said it, the Mississippi Miracle, that's now in the past. It's now the marathon. What can we do to move it to the next level? And these are the steps outlined to me are what's most important. So we can't rest. It's time to keep moving. And like I said, it's not a warning yet. It's a reminder. If it happens again next year, I think we're sliding more into a warning situation. So we need to keep moving forward.
We've looked at it from the standpoint of we have reevaluating everything we do. That's how we've looked at it. So.
That's right. Good information. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more action item with a grant. Ms. Wiggins.
Good afternoon. I have one action item to bring before you this afternoon now. Approval of grant awards made to 5 IHL institutions in support of the world-class teacher program as appropriated by House Bill 42, 2025. The total amount of the grant award is $700,000 for a 1-year term.
Anybody have any questions or comments on this? Do I have a motion to approve this action item 4A?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Stroud, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, I think we did this a little backwards. So the consent agenda, items 3A through 3Q. Do we have a motion to approve those? Oh, excuse me, yes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, just so I get it?
Second.
So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we have no executive session. Let's see, does anybody have any reports on meetings they attended they would like to share? Does anybody need any approval to attend any meetings? Okay. Then our next board meeting will be held on September 25th, 2025, at the Central High School building in the fourth floor boardroom, starting at 10 a.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Allen, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Very good. Thank you all today.
Thank you.